I didn't play Division I basketball. I was a lot better baseball player. But, my path is my path, and I'm sure probably for some people that's an interesting path, starting from junior college in southwestern Iowa to being here today. I'm actually, my college basketball coach was Tom Mitchell. If anybody in here from Florida knows, he's the vice president of development and alumni affairs at the University of Florida. So we both he went from sweatsuits to three-piece suits, and I stayed in the sweatsuit.
We're going to go to our far right in the second row, then we have two on the center aisle.
Steve, when you went back to the JUCO ranks, did you ever imagine yourself sitting in this spot right there?
It'd be hard to say that. The day after we got fired, no. I cleaned out my office on my birthday. That was a real memorable birthday, and I would have thought I probably thought I would get back to Division I at some point as an assistant, but being a head coach, I got to give Dr. Sander all the credit for that. Sometimes they just want to win the press conference, and maybe I wasn't a real sexy hire at that time, but no, probably not. I really enjoyed being at Northwest Florida. It was great, and we went. I don't know who put the Wikipedia out there, but we were 62-6, not 61-6. And as a head coach, we got to get every win we can get. All right, and so I had some opportunities, but I knew it had to be the right one for me to leave. And Greg Marshall, coming off a Final Four and giving me that opportunity was an opportunity of a lifetime. And then to be at Wichita and go 35-1 and 30-4, and then have Doc giving me a call, I couldn't have scripted it any better.
Second row in the center, and then right behind you.
Coach, can you talk about what the experience you and your staff have, and some Tevin and Hunter? What's the message in terms of not just enjoying being here, but being here to win and move on?
Yeah, well, just be businesslike and stick to the plan, and that's something that we started in November. You guys remember we went to South Dakota and played in a 3-day tournament up there. We played with Milwaukee, who got to the finals of their tournament, South Dakota State, who is in the tournament, and then Irvine, who got to the finals. We won 3 games in 3 days. We had short turnarounds for scouting report. They were locked in and focused, and that's just all it has to be here, is just be locked in and focused. And a lot of times I talk to our team about tightening their circle, blocking out the noise, and just concentrating on what the task at hand is. And I think having an older group, they're able to do that, and I don't think that'll be a problem.
Staying on the center aisle.
Coach, I know when you and your kids were excited when you saw your name go up on the bracket, but then the very next thing that was said was Seth predicting an upset. And this is the first upset I'm calling, is it?
Good for Seth.
Do you guys take that as a compliment? Do you embrace it? Do you want your kids to put that out of their minds?
I don't think they pay attention to that. We couldn't even hear it, to be honest with you. It was so loud in there. Somebody did tell me that later. I don't think they put a lot into that. It's nice. That's the sexy matchups, the 12s and the 13s. People like to say those are great, upsets, but I don't think so. I think they know Florida's really good. All you have to do is turn on some tape and see him fly up and down the floor. Chris Chiozo is one of the fastest kids with the ball I've seen going north and south, and I coached against John Wall. Now, he's not John Wall, but he's John Wall fast when he gets that ball in his hands, and so I think we got their attention. And it's nice to one of the nice things about playing our tournament early is we get a chance to enjoy it. I've been played in the SEC championship game on Sunday, and you went to the banquet room in the hotel after the game, you watched the TV show, you flew home, and you flew back out again. You didn't really get a chance to enjoy it. These kids had a chance to enjoy that win over Greensboro for an entire week, and I'm glad they had that opportunity, but now it's business.
We'll go across the center aisle and then on our left.
Coach, you talk about closing the circle. How about yourself? You've become one of the hottest names right now since you guys have made it into the tournament. How have you closed your circle? Cut your phone off yet?
No, because message boards and newspapers don't hire coaches, and so I don't worry about stuff like that. I'm real happy where I'm at, and I'm very focused on what the task at hand is. I'm really good at blocking out the noise. I've been there before, being at Tennessee and A&M and Wichita State. We've had a lot of, hype around our program, and we were a number 1 seed when I was at Wichita State. So I don't really get caught up in all that. I'm real happy being the head coach at East Tennessee State. I'm very lucky to be the head coach at East Tennessee State, and I'm going to remember you said that 2 years from now when you're trying to fire me.
Second row on our left.
Yeah, Kevin Brockway from the Gainesville Sun. Coach, you've alluded to Florida's speed in the backcourt, but you guys have kind of bigger guards. Is there any way or how you can use that to your advantage and how you have maybe during your conference schedule?
Yeah, I think defensively, Kevin, we've been able to defend really well because of our length and our strength and our size, and we have to try to use that to our advantage. One of the big things we cannot let Florida do is get second chances. And, Robinson's really quick to the ball, really quick to the basket at 6'8" on the wing. He can play the 3, he can play the 4. So he's actually got a little bit of an advantage there, height-wise. But we've got to try to use our physicality, and our strength to try to keep Florida out of the paint. And that's going to be a hard thing to do without fouling them. And so if you ask me, what are sometimes our weaknesses? I mean, sometimes we foul a little too much. We turn the ball over a little too much, and that plays into Florida's hands.
Front row and then on our far left.
Coach, I wanted to follow up on that. In talking to you and watching you this year, turnovers has really been the story for you. When you don't turn it over, you play very well.
Yeah.
What have you done in practice this week trying to eliminate that? I know it's a hard thing to do.
I don't know if we've done it. I think we practiced really hard. One of the proudest moments for me was at the SoCon tournament when we were sitting up here after the Mercer game. And somebody asked DeSante Bradford, did you guys panic when you're down 12? And he goes, no, practice is harder than the games. Now that's not necessarily true, but I that was proud for me to hear him say that. We just try to put a lot of heat on them in practice, and then, we got the old Bob Huggins treadmill behind the basket there. If you turn it over too much, you get to go on that treadmill for a little bit. I haven't had to use it in a while because we've gotten better at handling the ball. Some of that goes with playing fast, PJ. Sometimes when you play really fast, you're going to turn it over a little bit, and we try to play fast, and we haven't really done anything. We just talk about it and, try to correct it.
Third row on our left.
Steve, you talked about cleaning your office out on your birthday.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about the despair that you were feeling at that point? I mean, you had the show cause and everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, the show cause, hadn't gotten that yet. We hadn't gotten to the committee of infractions till in the summer. But, as a father, it's a tough moment because, I've been married 27 years now, or 28, I think. My wife's going to kill me. But, you got 3 kids. It's a tough moment. You're not quite sure what you're going to do, and how you're going to pay the bills and sell your house. The housing market was bad at that time, and I had a big house. And so I just really wasn't prepared, financially for something like that. And then going back to, but, I was employed pretty quickly. Northwest Florida, Mickey Inglet, who's the AD at Northwest Florida, called me, and I got a wonderful opportunity there quickly. But the money was obviously a lot less. So we had to downsize. And you know what? That was the best thing that probably ever happened to me. I didn't need all that stuff. I didn't need that big house. I knew that growing up. Just something that, adversity does certain things to certain people. And I thought it was a tremendous teaching moment for me. I try to tell our players all the time, when you get knocked down, you got to get back up. You tell your kids that. And there I was, knocked down. And my children were looking at me like, well, what's Dad going to do? So I felt like I had to get up, be accountable, and then persevere. And just like our team, I think that's probably, if you ask me that about our team, we're just a team that perseveres.
Center aisle. Oh.
Excuse me? No, I knew I could coach. The junior college option was there. I had, some Division I coaches call me that asked me to be their assistant, but I knew with what was probably coming down, it probably wouldn't be a good thing, to drag that with me to another school. So I felt like going back to junior college was the right path. A lot of people wouldn't want to do that. Somebody asked me the other day, why didn't you just sit out? I said, I didn't have enough money to sit out, and I really wanted to coach, guys. I love coaching, and I played junior college basketball. I coached it for 11 years. Great players. Two of my players are over at the hotel right now. Chris Jones, who played at Louisville, and Shaquem Jackson. I just felt like I could really go help some young men get, turn their dreams into reality. So I thought the junior college route was perfect for me. And then one thing about junior college, when you got really good players, everybody's coming through. So I kept the same network of friends that I had for many years in Division I. And I knew ultimately I would get the opportunity to go back as an assistant. It just had to be with the right person at the right time.
Center aisle.
Coach, when you were hired, you talked about bringing championships to Johnson City. It's one thing to say that at the press conference, but you've done that. Is this faster than you thought, or the expectations, you exceed your expectations this quickly?
Well, I have a lot of confidence. We talked a lot about that, Casey, when I took the job. I talked about cutting down nets, playing meaningful games in March, but I just feel like Coach Dr. Sander didn't hire me to come to the podium and say we're going to finish 3rd or 4th or 5th and maybe be good in year 3, 4, or 5. I just don't think that's what people want to hear. As a coach, do I really want to say that? Probably not, but, you know, that's just the way it is. And I have a lot of confidence in my abilities. I have a lot of confidence in our staff's abilities. That's one thing that I don't think people really understand is how talented our staff is. You know, Jason Shea, we worked together for, 5 years at the University of Tennessee, beat a lot of nationally ranked teams, including Florida. And it was his scout all the time. And so I have a very talented person right next to me. Brooks Savage was with us the whole time at Tennessee. And then he was with me at Northwest Florida. And then Brian Collins played for Rick Byrd. His dad's a high school Hall of Fame coach. He was the starting point guard on Belmont's first NCAA tournament team. He's played professionally. The one thing that I'm proud of, everybody on my staff, besides Brian, was with me at Northwest Florida. Think about that. All junior college guys, Jason, me, Brooks, Matt Klein, who's my Dobo, we're all together at Northwest Florida. And Brian actually came down and played us at that time.
We're going to take one more question in the front row.
Coach, I want you to elaborate on your recruiting philosophy. You seem to reload more than recruit. Is that your JUCO background because you've always had to turn over teams, that you're always looking for talent? Is that the deal?
Well, it works for Calipari, doesn't it? I mean, he gets a little bit different cat than I get, but it's kind of the same deal. I think you got to go where you're strong, and Johnson City, Tennessee is not Memphis, Tennessee. Okay, we're not sitting around. I don't wake up every morning. I'm not surrounded by 30, 40 Division I basketball players, and so my job is to fill that arena and win basketball games. And so it was the best route that I felt like for East Tennessee State to get where we wanted to be today was to go out and tap into those, connections that we all have in junior college and then transfers too. And we've sprinkled in some good high school players too, and we'll continue to do that. I just like good players because I know good players make good coaches. And so, as long as I'm the head, as long as they allow me to be the coach here, we're going to continue to compete for championships. And to do that, I don't care where you're from, as long as you can play.
Coach, thank you. Good luck.
All right, thank you.